Good day everyone, my name is Marnely Jane Cadalin and our topic for today is all about the Chapter 8 Project Management. So what is project management? It is one of the most popular uses of networks analysis. So the projects as construction of buildings, development of drugs, or the installation of computer system. So before we proceed, let us know what is CPM and PERT. So CPM, or the critical path method, it is a single or deterministic estimate for activity time was used, and it represented as nodes or the circles. So PERT, or the project evaluation and review technique, it is a probabilistic time estimate were employed, and the activities were represented as arcs or arrow lines between two nodes or circles. So next is the elements of project management. Management is generally concerned with the planning, organization, and control of ongoing process or activities such as the production of product or the delivery of service. So when we talk about management, it is about an ending cycles. Ang purpose talaga nila is to look after the entity in an ongoing basis, means walang expectation na makuklose ang business. So next is the project management. So in the project management, still you will plan, organize, and control the activity. But it is relatively in a short period of time, but dili talaga siya short lang, but it could take 5 to 10 years. 5 to 10 years. So in the project management, there is time limit because a project should be finished. Then if the project could not be finished, then it is a failure. So the goal of project management is to end a project in a shortest possible time and in the lowest cost. So the elements of planning. So first, objectives. So objectives, it is a detailed statement of what is to be accomplished by the project, how it will be achieved, the company's goals, and met the strategic plan, and an estimate of what it needs to be completed, the cost and the return. So next is the project scope, a discussion of how to approach the project, the technological and the resource feasibility, the major tasks involved, and a preliminary schedule. So it includes the justification of project and what constitute project is success. So the third is the contract requirements. So a general structure contract requirements is a general structure of managerial reporting and performance responsibilities, including a detailed list of staff, suppliers, subcontractors, managerial requirements, and agreements. So, reporting requirements and a project organizational structure. So, next is this schedule. It is a list of all major events, tasks, and subschedules from which master schedules is developed. So the next is the resources. So resources is the overall project budget for all resource requirements and procedures for budgetary control. Next is the personnel. So personnel is the identification and requirements of personnel required for the project team, including special skills and trainings. Next is the control. So control is the procedure for monitoring and evaluating progress of performance, including the schedules and the costs. So the last is a risk and problem analysis. So it is the anticipation and assessment of uncertainties, problems, and potential difficulties difficulties that might increase the risk of project delays and or failures and threaten project success. So, kumbaga, how will you deal with the risk and problems that arise in the project? So, in the screen, you see a figure about the project management process that includes the planning, scheduling, and control. So, project next is the project return. So, project return is a project to be selected and to be undertaken. It typically offers positive gain or benefit for the organization that is considering it. So, uh, so ROI, you see in your screen there are ROI is a performance measure that is often used to evaluate the expected outcome of a project or to compare several different projects. So, to calculate the ROI, the benefit or the return of the project is divided by the cost of the project, and the result is expressed as the percentage or a ratio. Uh, so ROI is equals to gain from project minus the cost of project divided by the cost of project. So, if a project does not have a positive ROI, or if another project has higher ROI, then the project might not be undertaken. So, the next is the project team. So, it consists of various individuals from different departments and also includes outside consultant. So, if the project is building, warehouse, so it could be from engineering staff, and it could from accounting also, and may include many workers. So in the project team, there are also a project manager. So project manager, it is the most important member of the project team. So as a project manager, rather, you must be able to coordinate various skills from members in a single focus effort. So the next would be the scope statement to be tackled by the next reporter.
What is slope statement? A slope statement in project management is a short sentence that explains how much extra cost we will pay when we try to reduce the time of a task. Let me explain what slope means in project management in a simple word. Sometimes, we want to finish a task earlier than planned, but finishing early usually means need to spend more money, like paying overtime, hiring more workers, or using better tools. The slope helps us understand how much extra money we will have to spend to save time on a task. Each task has two main sets of values. First is normal time, the usual time to finish the task. Next is normal cost, the normal cost if we don't rush. Next is crash time, the shortest possible time if we rush. Next is crash cost, the higher cost when we crash or speed up the task. So what is cost slope? To compute the cost slope, we use this formula. Cost slope equals crash cost minus normal cost slash normal time minus crash time. This tells us how much extra cost we pay for each day or each week we save. So, let's say normal time is equals to 20 days, normal cost is 500,000, crash time 15 days, and crash cost is 550,000. So now, compute the slope. So 550,000 minus 500,000 slash 20 minus 15 is equals to 50,000 minus 5 is equals to 10,000 per day. So this means every day we save will cost us 10,000 and more. So why is this important? So this helps the project manager decide is saving one day worth paying 10,000 or more. So if yes, maybe because the project must finish earlier, then they save or they may choose to crash the task. And In the slope statement example, we say something like this. The cost slope for task A is 15,000 per week. That means if we reduce the time by 1 week, the cost goes up to 15,000 pesos. So it's a simple way to describe the cost of saving time. In short, slope helps us balance time and money in a project. It's a helpful tool when we need to decide if it's worth spending more to finish earlier. And now, I will be discussing the work breakdown structure, or the WBS, an essential tool in project management. So a WBS is a method used to break down a large project into smaller and more manageable components. This structure allows us to project teams to clearly define and organize the total scope of the project. So by dividing works into levels, from the overall objectives down to specific tasks, the WBS helps with planning, assigning responsibilities, tracking projects, and ensuring that no part of the project is overlooked. So let's start with the first picture. So think of like a company org chart. But instead of people, it shows the pieces of a project. So at the top, we have level 1. So this is the main goal. It could be build a house, launch an app, or plan a wedding. So whatever your final outcome is, that's a level 1. So then comes with level 2. These are the major activities. Think of like a big categories of departments under your projects. For example, for a house, this might include designs, constructions, and finishing. So next, we go to level 3. So these are the milestones or a bucket items under each major activity. They break things into even further but are still not super detailed. This help guides progress in a big areas. And now, we go to the level 4. So this is where the actual work happens. Each back at this level is a real task and usually includes details like due dates and who's responsible. So this is where your take and actions.
Good day everyone, today we're going to dive into an important project management tool called the Responsibility Assignment Matrix, or the RUM. So, by the end of this lesson, we should be able to understand what is organizational breakdown structure, know how the RUM fits into project management, and also see how RUM looks like within a real-world example. And lastly, understand the key rules in a RUM and why is it important. So, before we get into the RUM, let's first understand what is an OBS, or Organizational Breakdown Structure is. So, imagine you have a big project with lots of tasks. To make it manageable, you break down those tasks into smaller pieces. The OBS is a chart that shows which department, team, or individual is responsible for each task. It's like a map of who's doing and what is in the project. So now, once we identify who does and what through the OBS, we move on to the next step by creating Responsibility Assignment Matrix, or the RUM. So the RUM takes the work from OBS and organize it in a way that clearly show 3 things. So the first one is who is responsible. This is the person or the team actually doing the work. And second is who is accountable. This is the person who is ultimately in charge of making sure the work gets done correctly. And third is who supports. These are the people or the teams who help out to provide resources to get the job done. So let's tackle about why RUM is important. So think about like this. Imagine you're a part of a team but you're not sure who's responsible for what task or what you need to report to. This could lead to confusion, missed deadlines, and tasks not getting done at all. The RUM eliminates the confusion. It shows exactly who is doing what, who is overseeing the work, and who is supporting. So it helps everyone stay organized and stay focused. So now let's look at an example for RUM for a project, specifically for hardware installation. Category in a system installation project. So in the presentation provided, here's the RUM might look like. We have a level which is level 1, accountable. The project manager, they are the ones ultimately responsible for the success of the task. And for the rating 2 or the level 2, responsible, the installation team lead, the person or the team actually doing the work for installing the hardware. And for level 3, support, it supports the procurement team. They help out by providing resources, technical support, or necessary materials. So in the RAM, we have 3 key rules. First is responsible. This is the person doing the actual work. Second is accountable. This is the person ensures the task is completed correctly and on time. And third is support. This is the group or individual provides assistance when needed. So the RAM helps us in a lot of ways. First is it makes clear who's doing each task. Second is it helps prevent confusion and overlapping responsibilities. Third is it makes monitoring progress easier. And lastly, it ensures better communication across the team. So now, keep it in mind that every project is different, so that the way you set up your RAM may vary. Some projects may have a lot of teams involved, while others might have just a few. You can always customize the OBS and RAM depending on what works best for your project, your team, and your organization. So let's move on to the project schedule. So to start, a project schedule is a detailed plan that shows all the tasks, their sequence, and the time required to complete them. It is a crucial tool for managing a project because it helps us make sure everything gets done on time. Why? Well, because time is often the most critical factor in determining the success of the project. So, let's think about some real-life example. Imagine a stadium that's supposed to be finished before the first game of the season, or a school building that must be ready before the school year starts. But if those projects aren't completed on time, there will be a lot of disappointed people or angry people. The same goes on for things like shopping malls, product launches, and military equipment. Delay can cause big problems. Time is a measurable element in every project, and unlike money or resources, time can't be stopped or slowed down. So once the day passes, it's gone. So sticking to the schedule is very important. Now let's break down on how to create a project schedule. So there are 4 basic steps involved. First is define the activities. So start by listing all the tasks or activities that need to be done and to complete the project. Second is sequence of the activities. Once you know the task, you need to figure out an order and in which they should be done. Some tasks depend on others, so they have to be done in specific order. Third is a specific time. Next is estimate the time on how each task will take. It is important because it helps us create a realistic timeline. So, the fourth one is develop a schedule. Finally, you combine all the sequence of activities and the estimated times to create a project schedule. This project scheduling involves time, a quantifiable and fixed resource. There are several tools and techniques that can help you create a schedule. So here's a few common ones. So first is Gantt chart. This is one of the oldest and most widely used schedule tools. It uses a bar chart to show the start and the end dates of each task, making it easy to visualize the timeline of the project. Second is a CPM or critical path method and PERT, program evaluation review technique. There are more advanced techniques that help you managing the tasks that have interdependencies. And second, or third, is software tools. Tools like Microsoft Project help automate and visualize scheduling process. So why is scheduling important? So think of it this way. Without a schedule, you're working blindly. You might be busy with a lot of tasks, but you don't really know if you're on track to finish the project on time. So a schedule gives you a clear roadmap, and if the things start to go off track, you can adjust accordingly. But it's also important to remember that time is non-negotiable, where you can adjust resources like money or people. You can stop or slow down time. That's why sticking to the schedule is so critical for project success.
So first we have Gantt chart. So Gantt chart is a graph or a bar with a bar for each project activity that shows the passage of time. So to broaden our understanding about Gantt chart, it is a traditional technique or management technique for scheduling and planning small projects that have relatively few activities and precedence relationships. Analyze. So I will show you the graph later and I will discuss it for a broadened statement. The project contains only 7 general activities such as designing the house, laying the foundation, and ordering materials and so forth. The first activity is design house and obtain financing, and it requires 3 months to complete, shown by the bar from the left to the right and left to the right across the chart. After the first activity is finished, the next 2 activities, lay foundation and order and receive materials, can start simultaneously. This set of activities demonstrates how a precedence relationship works. The design of the house and the financing must precede the next 2 activities. So the activity lay foundation requires 2 months to complete. So it will be finished at the earliest at the end of month 5. Order and receive materials requires 1 month to complete, and it could be finished after month of 4. However, observe that it is possible to delay the start of this activity 1 month until month 4. This delay would still enable the activity to be completed by the end of month 5. When the next activity, the build house, is scheduled to start, this extra time for the activity order and receive materials is called slack. The project contains only 7 general activities such as designing the house, laying the foundation, and ordering materials and so forth. The first activity is design house and obtain financing, and it requires 3 months to complete, shown by the bar from the left to the right and left to the right across the chart. After the first activity is finished, the next 2 activities, lay foundation and order and receive materials, can start simultaneously. This set of activities demonstrates how a precedence relationship works. The design of the house and the financing must precede the next 2 activities. So the activity lay foundation requires 2 months to complete. So it will be finished at the earliest at the end of month 5. Order and receive materials requires 1 month to complete, and it could be finished after month of 4. However, observe that it is possible to delay the start of this activity 1 month until month 4. This delay would still enable the activity to be completed by the end of month 5. When the next activity, the build house, is scheduled to start, this extra time for the activity order and receive materials is called slack. So let's talk about slack. Slack is the amount of time by which an activity can be delayed without delaying any of the activities that follow it or the project as a whole. So the remainder of Gantt chart is constructed in similar manner, and the project is scheduled to be completed at the end of month 9. A Gantt chart provides a visual display of a project schedule, indicating when activities are scheduled to start and to finish and where extra time is available and activities can be delayed. So Gantt chart also indicates the precedence relationship between activities. However, these relationships are not always easily discernible. It's because the problem is one of the disadvantage of Gantt chart method, and it limits the chart's use to smaller projects with relatively few activities. So next are the project control. Project control is process of making sure a project progresses towards successful completion. It requires that the project be monitored and progress measured so that any deviations from the project plan, and particularly the project schedule, are minimized. If the project is found to be deviating from the plan, corrective action must be taken. In the rest of this section, we will describe several key elements of project control, including time and cost management and performance monitoring. Time management is the process of making sure a project schedule does not slip and that a project is on time. This requires monitoring individuals' activity schedules and frequent updates. If the schedule is being delayed to an extent that jeopardizes the project success, it may be necessary for the project manager to shift resources to accelerate critical activities. Some activities may have slack time, so resources can be shifted from the activities that are not on schedule. This referred to time cost and trade-off. However, this can also push the project cost above the budget. In some cases, it may be that the work needs to be corrected or made more efficient. In other cases, it may occur that original activity time estimates on implementation prove to be unrealistic, and schedule must be changed, and the repercussions of such changes on project's success must be evaluated. So, time management is really important for project control because kana dili maguta maka-monitor gyud, especially sa atoa mga schedule time, which is very relevant para sa atoa and para sa kanang mga projects sa kailangan gyud siya i-monitor. So, cost management is often closely tied to time management because of the time-cost trade-off occurrence mentioned previously. If the schedule is delayed, costs tend to go up to get the project back on schedule. Also, as a project progresses, some cost estimates may prove to be unrealistic or erroneous. Therefore, it may be necessary to revise cost estimates and develop budget updates. So, cost management is more on like the budgetary plan in which na connect siya sa time management. So, si cost manggod is kung mong baba daw imuhang mong delay daw imuhang schedule, magdako pud siya o kanang kaltas imuhang budget. Mao kanang kung aron maano na to ang kanang time management, we must do the cost management nga kanang aron ma-lessen na to ang gastos ato nga kuan. So performance management is a process of monitoring a project and developing time status reports to make sure that the goals are being met and plan is being followed. So next is Earned Value Analysis, or EVA, is a specific system for performance management. Activities earn value as they are completed. EVAs are a recognized standard procedure for numerical measuring a project's progress, forecasting its completion date and final cost, and providing measures of schedule and budget variation as activities are completed. For example, an EVA metrics such as schedule variance compares the work performed during a time period with the work that was scheduled to be performed. A negative variance means the project is behind schedule. Cost variance is the budget cost of work performance minus the actual cost of the work. A negative variance means the project is over budget. EVA works best when it is used in conjunction with WBS that compartmentalize project work into small packages that are easier to measure. The drawbacks of EVA are that it is sometimes difficult to measure work progress and the time required for data measurement can be considered. Lastly, we have earned value analysis. It is a specific system for performance management. Activities earn value as they are completed. EVA is a recognized standard procedure for numerical measuring projects' progress, forecasting its completion date and final cost, and providing measures of schedule and budget variation as activities are completed. So, EVA or Earned Value Analysis is a project management technique that compares a project's progress to its original plan. It helps determine if a project is on schedule, on budget, and performing as expected. EVA uses three key elements: planned value or PV, earned value or EV, and actual cost or AC to assess project performance. So, what is planned value? So, planned value DI is the budgeted cost for the work scheduled to be completed by a specific point in time. And second is the earned value, the budgeted cost of the work that has actually been completed. And lastly, we have AC or actual cost. The AC is the actual cost of the work that has been completed. So that's it for the project control. Project risk. Every project has risk of varying size and degree. A risk is any uncertain factor, event, or occurrence that might potentially interfere with the progress and successful completion of the project. A risk is not a problem, but a recognition that a problem might occur. By recognizing, understanding, and identifying potential problems in advance and planning for them, the project team and manager can attempt to prevent them. So, managing project risk is best addressed in planning stage. A risk management plan documents how risk will manage throughout the project. In addition to identifying potential risks, it specifies with which team members are responsible for managing various areas of risk. Managing projects risk is proactive. The first step is to identify all of the possible risks that can be anticipated in the project. This might include such things as resource changes, wrong assumptions, a change in company objectives and needs, and technology changes. Risks that are identified should then be evaluated in terms of their impact and possible eventuality, and possibly quantified. Although any kind of risk evaluation and measurement is obviously an estimate, the object is to have a process to compare the risks to one another to prioritize them in terms of which ones will most threaten the project's success. Managing risk is crucial to ensure success. Risks are uncertain events that might affect a project's progress. Project managers identify, evaluate, and prioritize risks to minimize their impact. A risk management plan outlines how to manage risks throughout the project. One approach to managing project risk is agile project management. This method adapts to uncertain and change by breaking down tasks into small increments with minimal planning. It emphasizes teamwork, frequent communication, and flexibility, making it suitable for projects with rapid changes like software development. By responding to change rather than following a plan, agile project management reduces overall risk and allows for quick adaptation to changes, prioritizing customer needs and goals.
And now I will explain the two important tools in project management, the CPM and PERT. So these tools help us plan and manage big projects steps by step. So what are CPM and PERT? So CPM and PERT are tools that helps us plan a project. They shows which task must happen first, which can wait, and how long everything takes. So this way, we can make sure that the project is done on time. What is CPM? CPM stands for Critical Path Method. It's used when we know exactly how long each task takes. CPM finds the longest sets of tasks, the critical path. If one of these tasks is late, the whole project will be late. So here an example. If task A takes 2 days, task B takes 3 days, and task C takes 5 days, the whole project takes 10 days. And this is the critical path. Any delays here will delay the whole project. And what is PERT? PERT stands for Program Evaluation and Review Techniques. It's used when we're not sure how long a task will take. PERT uses 3 guesses: the best case, the normal case, and the worst case. So here are the PERT formula. So to find the average time using PERT, we use this formula. Add the best time, 4 times the normal time, and the worst time, then divide by 6. So let's do a PERT example. The best time is 2 days, the normal time is 4 days, and the worst time is 8 days. Using the formula, the average is about 4.3 days. You might ask, why do we divide by 6 in a PERT formula? Or the PERT formula? So it's because we're taking a weighted average. We count 1 part of the best case, 4 parts of the most likely case, and 1 part of the worst case. So that makes 6 parts total. So divided by 6 gives us the average time to expect for that task. So CPM versus PERT. So CPM is good when you know the time for each task. It's often used in construction. So PERT is better when you're not sure or like a research or new projects. So to sum up, use CPM when you know how long things takes. Use PERT when you're guessing or unsure. So both tools help you plan your project step by steps.
So today we're going to talk about AOA networks, which stands for Activity on Arrow Networks. So these are used in project scheduling, specifically in CPM, Critical Path Method, and PERT, which is Program Evaluation Review Technique. In an AOA network, we use arrows to represent activities or tasks, and nodes, those numbers of circle, to represent points in time, like starts or finish activities. So, the arrow is equivalent to the work/activity, and the circle or the nodes is equivalent to an event/point in time. So now, let's look at the figure 8.5 in the material. So it shows there that the activity 1 goes from the node 1 to node 2, and the activity 2 goes from node 2 to node 3. This means that you must finish activity 1 before the activity 2 can begin. In these methods can help the project managers visualize order of tasks. So let's say we're building a house. We break it down into a smaller task and draw it out into an AOA networks. Like in the figure 8.6, activity 1 to activity 2, first we design the house and get the financing. After that, 2 things can be happen at the same time. From activity 2 to 3, lay the foundation in 3 months. And also in 2 to 4, order and receive the materials in 1 month. Since both depend on finishing the design and financing, they both start from node 2. So, what is dummy activities? In figure 8.7, now here's something interesting. Dummy activities in AOA, each activity must have unique start and end nodes. But sometimes we want to show relationship, like this task must be done before that, even if there's no actual work on time involved. That's where a dummy activity comes in. It's a dash arrow that use only show the dependencies and not an actual task. Example from figure 8.6. After laying the foundation from activity 2 to 3 and ordering materials from 2 to 4, we use dummy arrow from 3 to 4. Why? To show that laying of the foundation must happen before building the house, which is activity 4 to 6, even though both 3 and 4 are already tied to node 2. Without the dummy, the network would be confusing. After the materials are received and the foundation is done, from 4 to 6, build the house, to 4 to 5, chose to paint. These happen at the same time, concurrently, but here's the catch. The carpet 5 to 6 can be picked until the paint is chosen because the colors need to match. Finally, from 6 to 7 means once the house is built and the carpet is selected, you can finish the house. So now let's talk about the importance of AOA networks. So first, it helps project managers see what comes before after a task. Second, shows which tasks can happen at the same time. And third, shows which tasks are critical and must be done on time. And lastly, and help avoid confusion with tools like dummy activities.
The AON or Activity on Node Network, as illustrated in Figure 8.8, represents a project scheduling method where activities and their durations are placed directly on the nodes, while arrows indicates the sequence or dependencies between tasks. This differs from the AOA or Activity on Arrow method, where activities are placed on arrows and may require dummy activities to clarify relationships. In AON, dummy activities are unnecessary because each activity has unique start and end points, reducing confusion and simplifying the diagram. Both AON and AOA serve the same core purpose, depicting task dependencies in a project, but they have minor differences in format and usage. Ultimately, choosing between them often comes down to personal or organizational preferences. So, this diagram is an activity on node network for a house building project as shown in figure 8.8. It visualizes the sequence and dependencies between different project activities, helping project managers understand the workflow and timeline. So, each circle node represents a specific activity. The top number in each node is the activity number. The bottom number is the duration, likely in days. The arrow indicates the order in which activities must be completed. An arrow from one node to another shows that the first must be completed before the second can begin. So, this network helps visualize the sequence of tasks, identify parallel activities, determine the critical path, the longest path through the network that determines the minimum project duration. So let's move on to the critical path. So what is critical path? So the critical path is the longest sequence of dependent tasks through a project network. It determines the shortest possible time to complete the entire project. If any activity on this path is delayed, the whole project will be delayed. So, in figure 8.8, there are 4 possible paths through the network, labeled A, B, C, and D. So, table 8.1 paths through the house building network. So, the table lists 4 possible paths through the network. Path A, and of which are the events is 1, 2, 4, and 7, and the duration is 9 months. For path B, for the events is 1, 2, 5, 6, and 7. The duration is 8 months. For path C, which is the event is 1, 3, 4, and 7,
and the duration is 8 months. For the last path, which is D, in the event is 1, 3, 5, 6, and 7, which is the duration is 7 months. So the project cannot be completed until the longest path in the network is completed. This is the minimum time in which the project can be completed. The longest path is referred to as the critical path. To better understand the relationship between the minimum project time and the critical path, we will determine the length of each of the 4 paths shown in the figure 8.8. By summing the activity times shown in figure 8.8 along each of the 4 paths, we can compute the length of each path as follows. So, path A, for 1, 2, 4, and 7, there are 3 plus 2 plus 3 plus 1 equals 9 months. For path B, which is 1, 2, 5, 6, and 7, there are 3 plus 2 plus 1 and plus 1 and plus 1, which is equals to 8 months. Path C, which is 1, 3, 4, and 7, there is 3 plus 1 plus 3 and plus 1 is equals to 8 months. For the path D, which is 1, 3, 5, and 6, and 7, there is 3 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 and plus 1, which is equals to 7 months. So, by adding the duration of each activity along each path, path A is identified as the critical path because it has the longest duration, which is 9 months. So, figure 8.8, the activity starts times. So, this diagram builds on the previous one by showing when each activity can start based on the dependencies. So, path A is the longest in the network, making it the critical path, and thus the project's minimum completion time is 9 months. The analysis of activity starts times shown in figure 8.9 reveals that activities can only begin once all preceding tasks are completed. For example, activity 3 starts after 3 months and activity 4 must wait until both activities 2 and 3 are done, meaning it can only start at 5 months. Similarly, activity 7 starts only after all prior paths are completed, which happens at 8 months, and it takes 1 month to finish, totaling 9 months. This example shows how the critical path determines the project duration through calculating it manually is time-consuming. Therefore, a more efficient mathematical method is introduced next.
In our analysis of the critical path, we determined the earliest time that each activity could be finished. This is referred to as earliest start time, and it is expressed symbolically as ES. ES is the earliest time an activity can start. To show the earliest start time on the network as well as some other activity times, we will develop in the scheduling process. We will alter a node structure a letter. Activity or node configuration. The figure shows activity number 1. Earliest start was 0 and the earliest finish was 3. The activity duration was 3 and the latest finish was 3. So, to determine the earliest start time for every activity, we make a forward pass through the network. That is, we start at the first node and move forward through the network. The earliest time for an activity is maximum time for all the preceding activities that have been completed, the time when the activity start node is realized. The earliest finish time, or the EF, for an activity is the earliest start plus the activity time estimate. For example, if the earliest time for activity 1 is at time 0, then the earliest finish time is 3 months. So, in general, the earliest start and the finish for an activity are computed according to the following mathematical formulas. So, as we can see, ES is equal to maximum and EF immediate precedator. So, to get the earliest finish, we will going to earliest time plus 1. So, from our example,
0 plus 3 is equal to 3, which is the earliest finish is equal to 3. In the provided network, the critical path is start was design house and obtain financing. Second was the lay foundation. Third is build house, select carpet, finish work. So the duration. So the total duration along this path is the sum of the duration of these activities, which corresponds to the earliest finish time at the finish work node. According to the diagram, the earliest finish time at the finish work node is 9 units of time. The significance. Activities on the critical path must be closely monitored and managed to avoid delays. Resources should be prioritized for these activities to ensure the project completes on time. Activities not on the critical path, like order and receive materials and select paint, have some slack and can be delayed without affecting the overall project duration. The practical implication: if any activity in the critical path is delayed, the entire project completion will be delayed by the same amount. Conversely, accelerating any activity on the critical path can reduce the total project duration. Starting at the end of the network, the critical path time, which is also equal to the earliest finish time of activity 7, is 9 months. This automatically becomes the latest finish time for activity 7 or latest finish 9 months. Using this value, the latest start time for activity 7 can be computed. So, latest start is equal to latest finish minus time is equal to 9 minus 1 is equal to 8 months. The latest finish time for activity 6 is the minimum of the latest start time for the activities following node 6. Because activity 7 follows node 6, the latest start time in compute is as follows. So, latest finish is mean or the LS following activities is equal to 8 months. The latest start for activity 6 is latest start is equal to latest finish minus time. So 8 minus 1 is equal to 7 months. For activity 4, the latest finish time is 8 months and the latest start is 5 months. For activity 5, the latest finish time is 7 months and the latest start is 6 months. Now, consider activity 3, which has two activities following it. The latest finish time is computed as follows. Latest finish is equal to mean or LS following activities. So mean 5 and 6 is equals to 5 months. So the latest start is LS equals LF minus T is equal to 5 minus 1 is equal to 4 months. All remaining latest start and latest finish times are computed similarly. Figure includes the earliest and latest starts time and earliest and latest finish times for all activities. Activity slot. The project network in the figure with all activities start and finish times highlights the critical path. The activity 1, 2, 4, and 7 we determined earlier by inspection. Notice that for the activities in the critical path, the earliest start times and the latest start times are equal. This means that these activities on the critical path must start exactly on time and cannot be delayed at all. If the start of any activity on the critical path is delayed, then the overall project time will be increased. As a result, we now have an alternative way to determine the critical path besides simply inspecting the network. The activities on the critical path can be determined by seeing for which activities ES is equal to LS or EF is equal to LF. In the figure, these activities 1, 2, 4, and 7 all have earliest start times and latest start times that are equal. Thus, they are on the critical path. For those activities not on the critical path, the earliest and the latest start times or the earliest and latest finish times are not equal and slack times exist. Slack is the amount of the time an activity can be delayed without affecting the overall project duration. In effect, it is extra time available for completing an activity. So slack or S is computed using either of the following formulas. S is equal to LS minus ES or S is equal to LF minus EF. For example, the slack for activity 3 is computed as follows. S is equal to LS minus ES, so 4 is minus 3 is equal to 1 month. If the start of activity 3 were delayed for 1 month, the activity could be still completed by month 5 without delaying the project completion time. The slack for each activity in our example project network is shown. Critical path activities. Notice in the figure that activity 3 can be delayed 1 month and activity 5, which follows it, can be delayed 1 more month, but then activity 6 cannot be delayed at all, even though it has 1 month of slack. If activity 3 starts late at month 4 instead of month 3, then it will be completed at month 5, which will not allow activity 5 to start until month 5. So, if the start of activity 5 is delayed 1 month, then it will be completed at month 7, and activity 6 cannot be delayed at all without exceeding the critical path time. The slack on these three activities is called shared slack. This means that the sequence of activities 3, 5, and 6 can be delayed 2 months jointly without delaying the project, but not 3 months.
In the previous section about building a house, each activity in the project plan was given a single time. For example, laying the foundation was estimated to take exactly 2 months. When only one time estimate is given, it means we are assuming the activity will take exactly that amount of time, with little or no variation. This is called a deterministic approach, which assumes that the timing is certain and predictable. However, in real world projects, this level of certainty is very rare. Most project activities are unique, meaning they haven't been done the exact same way before, so there isn't much past data to rely on. As a result, it's hard to predict exactly how long each activity will take. Things like weather, material delays, or unexpected problems can affect all the timing. This is why the PERT program evaluation and review technique method is useful, unlike CPM or the critical path method, which uses fixed time estimates. PERT allows for uncertainty by using probabilistic time estimates. In other words, instead of just one number, PERT uses three different estimates for each activity: the optimistic time, if everything goes well; the most likely time, if the normal and expected time; and the pessimistic time, if problems occur. This approach gives a more realistic view of how long activities might take and helps project managers can plan better for delays or changes.
So hi everyone, let's talk about the probabilistic time estimates. So to determine the use of probabilistic time, which was mentioned by Fritzi, we could employ another example. So in this example, we could use the house building network, a network that is more complex and mas large siya, so makaprovide siya more experience. More experience with different types of projects. So ang anong example lani, atong example dani is ang Southern Textile Company, which ga-decide sila og i-computerize ang ilang paglink sa customers and suppliers. So I think in the last previous example, ang Southern Textile Company is manually nila gina-produce ang ilahang mga deliveries, so maka-apekto siya sa delivery time, then maka-loss sa sales if madugay na or na customers nga dili ma-satisfied. Then, so we could use this probabilistic time estimates to provide them how long would it takes to install this system. So later mapakita ta sa kanang PPT o kanang breakdown sa activities with all the estimates. So the network begins with recurrent activities. So first is muna siya ang mga different activities na makita ninyo later sa figure 8.14. Okay, first, activity is the new computer equipment is installed. Another, the computerized order processing system is developed.
Third, the people are recruited to operate the system. Fourth, once people are hired, they are trained for the job. Then, another personnel in the company, such as marketing, accounting, production personnel, and are introduced to the new system. Another will be, once the system is developed, it is tested manually to make sure that it's logical. Following the activity 1, the new equipment is tested and any unnecessary modifications are made, which is activity 4. The newly trained personnel begin training on the computerized system. Then, Node 9 begin testings of the system on the computer to check for errors. Another is the final activities include a trial run and change over to the system. And final debug. So at this stage, we previously assigned single time estimates in each network activity. So in PERT, project network, we determined 3 time estimates, which enable us to estimate the mean and variance for beta distribution. Ang beta distribution is muna siya ang probability distribution whose shape is based on 3 time estimates. So variable siya is kaya ba we determine 3 time estimates man. So napod ko ma-share nga 3 reasons nga no ang beta distribution is sakto siya ay isa siya sa magamit sakto nga gamiton sa probability time estimates. So first, ang beta distribution, mean and variance can be approximated with 3 estimates. Variable, di ba siya? Again and again, kay 3 time estimates ang atong gidetermine. Second, ang beta distribution is continuous. Although, it has no predetermined shape, which is, example is ang bell shape of normal distribution. So, beneficial siya if we don't have prior knowledge sa shape and distribution of that certain activity times sa isa ka unique na project network. Third is kanang, although there are types of distribution nga more or less kanang mas accurate than beta, it has become traditional to use probabilistic beta distribution in a probabilistic network analysis. So if you ever wondered why I always mention 3 time estimates, so 3 time estimates was based on most likely time, optimistic time, and pessimistic time. So most likely time is the time that would most frequently occur in that certain activity that were repeated many times. So mga activity nga gabalik-balik, then nabantayan ni mga kana buhaton is kailangan gyapon nimo buhaton. Another is the optimistic time. It is the shortest possible time that the company would require to complete a certain task and assuming that everything went right. So mga buhaton nga kanang gamay ra ka imong kailangan nga time para makumpleto na, then sakto pa jud tanan. Sana all. Then another is the pessimistic time, which is kabaliktaran. It is the longest possible time that a company would require to complete that certain activity and assuming everything went wrong. So taas kay imong process inana, then mali ra day katanan. Familiar? Charot. So this kanang 3 time estimates is mas favorable siya if ang tao nga mag-estimate ani is familiar, then hands-on gyud anang activity. So it will give you the best estimates. So now, as you can see in the PPT, that is figure 8.14, that is more breakdown sa atong network for order processing system installation. So makita ninyo diha ang 11 ka activities with all the 3 time estimates. Nada ng equipment, installation, system development, position recruiting, orientation, and all. So, diya ta mag-base sa atong further nga computation para makuha ang mean and variance later akong discuss. So, di ba, nakapakita na makog picture. So, these 3 time estimates can be used to estimate the mean and variance sa beta distribution if ang A mag-represent na siya sa optimistic time, M represents the most likely time, and B represents the pessimistic time. So, as shown in the PPT, the mean and variance are computed as follows. So, muna siya ang formula ay inyong kalimti, ang atong mean is makuha siya sa a plus 4 times m plus b divided by 6, and sa variance naman is b minus a divided by 6 then squared. So next, the table 8.3 is kapakita na siya o complete na siya, computed na ang atong mean, time, and variance. So ata example. So di ba ang atong formula sa t, kung makita ninyo na ang dana, then ang sa variance bond. So makita ito example, ang activity 1 ang gibase ana. So activity 1 is ang A is 6, M is 8, and B is 10. So, pumakuha nato ang mean, 6 plus 4 times 8 plus 10 divided by 6. So, naatay 8 weeks nga time para makuha ng activity. So, ang variance naman is 10 divided by 6, ay 10 minus 6, sorry, divided by 6, then squared. So, makuha siya 4/9 na week. So, another example, if gusto mo, magkuha mo og kanang calculator. So, ang atong i-compute is ang activity 2, ang iyang mean o ang iyang variance. So, ang activity 2 na siya A nga 3, M nga 6, and B nga 9. So, referring to the formula, so, pamakuha ang mean natay 3 plus 4 times 6 plus 9 divided by 6. So, natay 32/6. So, ato na siyang i-divide, makakuha taog 6. So, it will take 6 weeks sa atong mean. So, variance naman is 9 minus 3 divided by 6, then squared, naatay makuha nga 6 divided by 6 squared, so naatay 1. So, kung makita ninyo sa PPT, ang ato activity 2 na siya mean time na 6 and ang variance nga 1. So, now natay ipakita nga figure 8.15, which is the earliest and latest activity times. So, na-compute na siya. Then, also ang slack. So, di ba, kung malimot mo, as previously discussed by my group mates, makuha na to ang slack by latest start minus earliest finish. So, kung inyong i-note, makita ninyo, ang walay slack is ang activity 2, padulong sa 5, padulong sa 8, and 11. So, this, katong nga mga, kay wala man sila slack, sila ang atong makonsider nga critical path, which is kailangan nga dili gid na ma-delay na activity. So, considering ana, we can also see that the expected project completion time is 25 weeks. Kung matingala mo asa nagikan ng 25 weeks. So, makuha na siya sa atong critical path, di ba, kay 2, 5, 8, and 11. Kung tanaw ninyo sa table 8.3, na akong gipakita last time, ay late ganina, ang mean time sa 2 is 6, ang sa 5 is 3, and sa 8 kay 7, ang sa 11 kay 9. So kung i-add tanan tong mga mean time ana atong critical path, muna siya magresulta nga 25 weeks ang atong expected project completion time. Na naman tayo katang critical path, which is ang activity 2, 5, 8, and 11. So we can possibly estimate the variance or compute the variance. So, itong i-note, kung makita nyo sa table na ay atong critical path activity and variance. So, ato lang siyang i-sum up. Then, muna siya ato ang variance of the critical path. So, kung i-sum up na to ang different variances, natin 6.9 weeks. So, the CPM or PERT method assumes that activity times are statistically independent, which allow us to sum the individual expected activity times and variances to get an expected project time and variance. It is further assumed that the network mean and variance are normally distributed. This assumption is based on the central limit theorem of probability, which for CPM or PERT analysis and our purposes states that if the number of the activities is large enough and activities are statistically independent, the sum of the means of the activities along the critical path will approach the mean of a normal distribution. So, given this assumption, we can interpret that the expected project time and variance as the mean and variance of a normal distribution. So, based on what we computed. Ang atong mean is 25 weeks and variance of 6.9 weeks. So in turn, we can use statistical parameters to make probabilistic statements about the project.
We discussing probability analysis of the project network using PERT, which stands for Program Evaluation and Review Technique. Since I mentioned PERT, it is most commonly used method for this type of analysis. This is an important method used in project management to estimate the time it takes to complete a project when uncertainty is involved. So, short introduction to PERT. So, PERT is a planning and control tool designed to handle uncertainty in project schedules. It's especially useful in research and development projects where time estimates are not precise. While CPM or critical path method uses fixed time durations, PERT allowed us to use probabilistic time estimates, which gives a more realistic view of how long a project might take. So PERT uses three time estimates for every activity. First, the optimistic time or O, which is the minimum time the task can take if everything goes perfectly. Second, the most likely time or M, which is the best estimate assuming normal condition. And lastly, the pessimistic time or P, which is the maximum time the activity might take if things goes wrong. These three help us calculate a weighted average or for a more realistic estimate. So now let's proceed to calculating expected time and variance. So the formula to calculate the expected time or TE is TE equals to optimism plus 4 most likely time plus pessimistic divided by 6. So this gives more weight to the most likely time. For risk assessment, we also calculate the standard deviation using P minus O divided by 6 and the variance as the square of the standard deviation. Once we have the expected time and variance for each activity, we can compute the probability of completing the project by a certain deadline. For this, we use the z-score formula, so z equals to t minus te divided by standard deviation, where t is the target project completion time, te is the total expected time, and standard deviation. These z values tells us the probability of finishing on time using standard normal distribution. So now let's apply what we have learned. Suppose we have a project with 3 activities on the critical path. In activity A, with times O is equals to 2, M is equals to 4, P is equals to 10. In activity B, with O and P is equals to 3. In activity C, with O is equals to 4, M is equals to 5, P is equals to 12. Our objective is to calculate the expected duration of the project and find the probability that the project will be done in 15 days or less. First, we compute the expected time and standard deviation for each activity. In activity A, TE is equals to 2 plus 4 times 4 plus 10 divided by 6 is equals to 4.67 days. And in standard deviation, so 10 minus 2 divided by 6 is equals to 1.33. And in activity B, TE is equals to 3 plus 4 times 3 plus 3 divided by 6. It's equals to 3 days. And standard deviation is equals to 0. And in activity C, TE is equals to 4 plus 4 times 5 plus 12 divided by 6 is equals to 6 days. And in standard deviation, 12 minus 4 divided by 6 is equals to 1.33. So adding this up, the total expected duration is 4.67 plus 3 plus 6 is equals to 13.67 days. And the total variance is 1.33 squared plus 0 plus 1.33 squared is equals to 3.54. So the project standard deviation is root 3.54 is equals to 1.88. So the project standard deviation is Square root of 3.54 is equals to 1.88. Now, let's find the probability of completing the project in 15 days or less. We calculate z equals to 15 minus 13.67 divided by 1.88 is equals to 0.71. Looking this up in the z table, a z value of 0.71 corresponds to a probability of about 26.11%. So there's roughly a 26% chance the project will finish in 15 days or sooner. So to summarize all of these, the expected project duration is 13.67 days and the probability of completion within 15 days is approximately 26.11%. That's all, thank you.